Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stand Up Speakeasy. I'm your host, Rethne, and every episode I bring a comic from all over the country and we talk about their comedy journey. And I can't wait to interview Christy because she's from currently lives in my home state of Colorado. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Christy. Hey, Christy, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you for having me. It was nice to have something to do today. So that I was excited. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Yeah, like every state's different. Some of them are locked down, some of them are open. Florida is just wild because no one wears a mask, and
Oh
we're
yeah,
still doing shows.
the wild Florida down there. Yeah. I mean, things are open and shows are happening. It's just more like I'm not gonna I'm still not going to go anywhere during the day. Like I don't have like a different job other than stand up or teaching stand up. So I don't go a lot of other places cuz I haven't made money in like a year, so I'm still catching up. But also it's just like I'm looking out the window like remember outside. No, but yeah, so I'm just not gonna press my luck as far as going out and going places. And anytime I leave, I spend money. So unless it's a show or an interview like this, I stay home pretty regularly.
Indeed, most definitely. And before the whole thing hit, like it's been a year. It's crazy. And what was like the comedy scene like in Denver?
I mean, it is so awesome. Like I love the scene here where I think probably if you want to just do purely stand up and you also don't want to be like on the road constantly, like there you can make pretty solid money like as just a single adult trying to just do stand up here and there. You can make pretty good money. The breweries really support our scene, so there's shows constantly. There's so many people moving here, so there's plenty of people to entertain. The club, I mean, Comedy Works has such an amazing system for creating good comics. Plus, we have the club in the Springs, as well as some really good stuff in Boulder. So I just love performing in Colorado in general because you can get such a wide variety. In Denver, it's pretty liberal, but then if you go up to Boulder, it's like really liberal. Like it's like PC, like a lot of things that work normally won't hit because you're like, ooh, maybe that's a little too like edgy or whatever, and they're like touchy a little bit. But it's good to learn how to perform for that audience. And then you can go down to the Springs, and that's one of the most conservative places in the world. Like Boulder and Denver or Colorado Springs and Boulder are just like the antithesis of each other. And so as a comic, if you're making that circuit around the country or around the state, you're ready to perform around the country just anywhere. And then you go to Fort Collins, and it's just the nicest audience you could ever have. They're magical up there. It's very bad. It's very hard to have a bad show in Fort Collins. So it's just such a great place. And now we actually have a new club up there, the Fort Comedy, which I've been lucky enough to perform at twice now already, and they're in their first month. So my hope is that all these venues can mostly hang on and actually will come out of the pandemic with more venues than we left with, especially since a lot of people got creative with outdoor venues during this time. And I'm hoping those shows, like as the summer comes back, those shows will still continue, I think, a lot of times. So it's exciting, I think, to see how, being creative and using ingenuity will actually, I think, help us have more stage options in the end. So I don't know, we'll see. But it's coming back now, and it's exciting for sure.
Indeed, most definitely. And I find that interesting with all those different cities and the different tastes of comedy. And it's the same way here in Florida. It's like Daytona loves it dirty. Like I love getting up there and just saying dirty things. And then like Orlando's very like, conservative, and St. Augustine's conservative, and Jacksonville likes it a little bit of both. And it's just so neat to be all in there. Um and so you made a name for yourself, sharing your heartwarming, hilarious realities of being a woman with a disability. And how did you find your voice with stand up with and all that stuff from the beginning to now?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely changed over the years. If you were to watch my set now, I definitely talk about my disability. I always have to address it, but I definitely don't like focus on it as much as I did um, when I was younger and brand new. And part of that was like, that's just the easiest thing for me to make a joke about at the time. But I think I really started because um, I knew of Josh Blue and I had watched him when he was on Last Comic Standing and seen him on his Comedy Central half hour. And that really did like, you know, if without him, I don't know if I would have had the like thought in my mind that there was like a place or a voice for this type of comedy talking about my cerebral palsy. And I definitely, I think I approach it differently than Josh. Josh will make you laugh and be silly about anything. And he's sort of the like, um, he's just sort of like an ornery like kid that's gonna like push people's buttons and stuff and have a lot of fun. Whereas I really like to poke fun at the way that society treats people with disabilities. And I feel like mine's a little angrier with a smile on my face, but still it's like probably more resentment. It's probably more clear about my mental health and how I approach my disability as opposed to him. I feel like he's a lot more comfortable and at peace with having a disability. So, but my voice has come, you know, started there and then just gone into like, you know, really delving into my family and all of that. I've come from a, you know, traditionally broken home. And so making fun of that stuff has been always good and fruitful for comedy. And then dating is just a struggle for everyone. And the thing with disability is it serves as a narrative tool that really like, what is the word I'm looking for? Expands or magnifies like all the issues that everybody has, right? So if your parents sort of are put pressuring you, or your parents are approaching, you know, your mom has a different parenting style than your dad, like the disability is the narrative tool that will help like show that. So I still find that my stuff is very relatable, even if you don't have a disability. I really try to focus on how it can be relatable to everybody. It's just I use the disability as a way to magnify those, you know, human experiences that we all have. Insecurity with dating, like everybody has that, even though mine's focused on my disability. Everybody has that. And so I found ways to be relatable with everybody, even though I'm talking about this, you know, kind of specific thing. But the nice part is it makes it so that very rarely do I write a joke that someone else has already written, because it's kind of a unique experience. I think Josh is the only person I have to go to and be like, do you have a joke like this already? We've had to do that a few times with each other. So, and it's just been awesome in Colorado to be able to work with him since he lives here, and you know, be able to go on the road with him and actually be in front of audiences that have heard, like, that are there specifically for my kind of comedy. You know, without him, I don't think I would have had that experience. So it's pretty cool.
Indeed.
Did I,
And
did I even answer the question? I just talked over.
you're totally fine. And I you know, the beautiful thing about comedy is like it brings everyone together, no matter if you have a disability or not, or all genders, race, everything. And like I'm in the same boat as you, and with a disability, and mine's like internal with like a heart condition, and like
Mm-hmm.
and an autoimmune disorder. And it's like, you know, just when I'm up there on stage, it's like I forget about all those things, and like I just like go up there like I'm living like I'm dying, and like literally, because like it's my heart, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
but it's like
Yeah, gosh, like your adrenaline goes up and stuff. That must be, yeah. It is. It's great. It's this one place where your like disability actually becomes your strength for the first time or the only time in your life, and that's what makes it so magic, I think.
indeed. And like when my doctors like put, you know, the stethoscope in like on my heart,
Mhm.
like, you shouldn't be alive right now. It sounds like a Tool concert in there.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's good to have. I mean, I'm making the most out of it, and you know, it's good stuff. And I interviewed Josh Blue when he was in town, and he was such a great guy. Like when he was in Jacksonville, and I was like, hey, how much? Before I interviewed him, I'm like, I'll buy you merch if you'd like to do an interview with me. And he goes, dude, you're from Colorado too. Like, because I told him I was from Colorado. He goes,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not even going to charge you for this because you're like you're from the home state. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
sweet,
Josh is so nice. So
indeed,
nice.
most
Yeah.
definitely. And you've been featured on Viceland's Flophouse, Hidden America with Jonah Ray, and Laughs on Fox. And what are your favorite memories from all those?
Oh man. Well, the one that was really fun was the Flophouse one because we recorded that at um, this courtyard where a lot of the comics lived. So they all had their own apartments, but it was all around this courthouse and courtyard, excuse me. And so, and that's a place I spent many times just hanging out with my friends. And so, and that was like all of our first TV credit. So it was really fun to be able to kind of share that together and be in such a place where I felt so comfortable to perform. And I was lucky enough to be, he picked my set to be featured on there and everything. And it just caught like the fun of, our late to mid 20s in a way that like when I get older, it'll be so fun to like look back on that and just remember it. And so that part was probably my favorite one. I actually struggled with my laughs on Fox, but mostly because I was very hungover. Don't go to Vegas the night before and get shithoused before you go. I've never even watched that tape because I know I look so like bloated and hungover. I'm just like, oof, cannot even look at it. So yeah.
Indeed. I think on Flophouse, wasn't like Brent Gill and was a part of that, or Sam Talent?
Yeah, Sam Talent was hosting it, and he's one of my very good friends, and so it was just really fun to do that with. And like Steve AJ was on there with it, me and him started together. We've been doing comedy together for our whole, almost 11 years now. So it was kind of fun to do that together and stuff. So, but yeah, Sam was the like sort of host and sort of flagship of that show. But I mean, he's that for Denver. So it was a very accurate depiction of what it's like to live and, be in Denver and, hang out with comics. And, it's fueled by beer and weed and we love it. It's okay.
Indeed, most definitely. I need to read Running the Light by Sam. I hear it's a really good book. So
it's very good, man. He's a good. I mean, if you've ever seen, I'm totally fine because like I cannot say enough good things about Sam Talent. I've been in so many interviews where I'm like, I'm great, but let's talk about. He's a genius. And if you watch him on stage, it's like magical. And I think he's starting to get the due that he's earned, and he's done it all himself, like on his own terms. He hasn't moved to LA. He hasn't tried to become, different for the club. And he hasn't, done that sort of just gross kind of grind. He'll be on the road and it's all DIY type of stuff. And I love it. And man, he's just something to behold when you see, every comic and every audience member. Like he's a comics comic where every comic wants to watch every set he does because it's going to be different, but rarely are comics also, beloved by the general audience, and he has both. So yeah, I've spent my entire comedy career like trying to catch up or be as good as him for sure. It's a good person to have sort of as your pace car, if you will. So
indeed, I met him in Pueblo, where I was raised mostly, as we talked that off the record, and he was performing at the Spirit House because my buddy John Brown hosted it when it was open. And so I got to see him and talk to him for a little while, and we were talking because I have my own festival there in Pueblo, and he was supposed to perform, but the pandemic hit, and I was like, dang it, because I already had Nathan Lund for that year, and we're so DIY, like underground, that we had it at my friend's house for the comedy show. And it was like in his basement, and like my friends came from St. Augustine, Florida to perform, and their families from Arkansas was like our only audience, and it filled every seat, and it was fantastic.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah, I was actually working on, and I don't think we're gonna do it this year. Probably wait till next year. But we were working on our Arvada Comedy Festival as well before the pandemic hit, and we had it. You know, we had all our sponsors and our venues on board, and we had sent out all of our invites to comics. We had David Bory come in to headline and stuff, and it was coming together so easily, and it was going to be awesome. And then pandemic ruined everything, so I totally understand that. But things will just come back bigger and better than ever, I think. So I'm excited.
Indeed, Colorado needs more comedy festivals because there's so many. Like, there's High Plains, there's Srethfest. I didn't want to pick that name, but the city named it after me. And then Arvada is coming up next, and
Yeah.
you've been on a couple more festivals, which are Crumb Comedy Festival in Omaha, Nebraska, High Plains Comedy Festival, Hell Yes Fest, and Limestone Comedy Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And what are some of your favorite memories from all those festivals?
I need to update my bio. That's what you're reminding me of. I mean, so many, they're so good. High Plains is just the best. Like, if I think that the pandemic, I mean, they're gonna do High Plains regardless outside, even if the numbers don't come down, but this year, but they've moved it to the last weekend of September, so hopefully that's right when like everything really hits that normal base. And I think God is going to be such like a emotional like love fest of just hanging out. I could cry just thinking about it. But High Plains is absolutely my favorite, and I think it probably would be even if I didn't live here. Just because Karen Wachtel and Adam run it so well. They bring in just the best comics. They don't take submissions at all. Like it's only hand selection, and they do a really good job of keeping on top of the scene. And they ask us, the biggest producers in town, they ask us for to help curate the local lineup because we know it a little bit better, and just the environment is great. But I mean, the thing about festivals that is just so wonderful is just being able to hang out with your friends, right? So once you get to a certain level in comedy, you're not at the mics with your friends anymore. You're not at shows with your friends. Even your like for me, most of the time, like I'm very lucky. This is not a complaint, and and I've worked hard for it. But most of the time, when I go to a show, I'm headlining the show, and then most of the comics that are there are younger than me. We're not really like they're nice. I don't have any problem, but they're not like my buds because they're just younger and they came up at a different time. And my friends, the ones that I came up with and are hanging out with, they're headlining other shows around town. And we don't get to like hang out as much as you would think because we're all working the same time and at the same night. So those festivals are just times where we all get to be in one place and celebrate how funny everybody has gotten and see these comics, that inspire us to be even better. And so that's like the part of any festival that's just awesome, is the hang, and like also getting to know new comics, where sometimes you're like, man, I didn't know about this person, and they will blow your mind with how funny they are. Like I remember a couple years ago at High Plains, Kenny DeForest, I hadn't heard of him. I don't know as many New York comics as LA comics, and I saw Kenny DeForest and I was just like, Jesus, this dude is so funny, and then I was able to bring him out for my own shows later on and everything. So yeah, just the hangs though. The hangs and the drugs are the best festivals, I think. So and I've gotten to do a lot of them since then, and yeah, so yeah, that's probably my favorite memories of it. Nothing too specific because you can't remember anything specific after the amount of mushrooms you take. But it's a good time and so good to hang out with friends. I can't wait. I feel like I'll just cry. Like, this is so amazing when we get back. So yeah.
Indeed. I love Candy Forest. If you like, put on some headphones because like I could hear myself echoing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. Hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can get these going.
But
They're going to connect to my phone. Hold on.
Awesome. But I'll remind the audience at home to follow you on Instagram and donate to your Venmo, and it's all scrolling on the bottom there. It's all on the YouTube video too in the description box below too. So, and all that good stuff.
That's not it. Sorry.
All sweet.
There we go.
Awesome. Yeah, I was like hearing my voice. I'm like, oh no, but we're good now. But yeah, Kenny DeForce is so cool. Like he did a show here in Jacksonville, and I got to interview him too, and he was such a good guy to talk to. And
Yeah.
and you're right about the festivals. Like so many people started later, and some of them started like now, and it's just great to like meet all those folks in their different stages in their careers.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, then that's why I'm like I was trying to bring like comedians from Florida to Colorado for mine, but I'm like it was too expensive, so I'm like, all right guys, for this year I'll have one in Colorado for the Colorado comics, and then one in Florida for all the Florida comics. So I have the one in Colorado is going to be in July, and the one in Florida is going to be in October. So it's going to be pretty neat. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, Florida is expensive to fly to, so it's much easier to just fly yourself than try to fly a bunch of comics for sure.
indeed, most definitely. And you've been described as brave for leaving the house in your bio, and I'm glad you are performing on stage and braving and doing it, and because it takes a lot of courage to perform on stage,
Yeah.
comic and my
Well, that's kind of like I mean, yes, it does. It takes a lot of courage. I teach comedy and I spend so much time on like overcoming that fear piece. That part in my bio though is sort of like a little bit of a poke at people who come up to me and they're like, "Oh my God, it's so inspirational that you get up there with your disability. Oh, you're so oh God," and you're just like, "Shut up!" Like, so yeah, that's sort of a poke at that. But yeah, it definitely is scary. That's what I love about teaching is seeing all these new comics like overcome that fear and do stand up for the first time. They're just like, man, I can tell when they get done, they feel unstoppable. And it sort of reminds you of like how exciting it was when comedy first started and how much you loved it, and, keeps me from getting like an old jaded comic who doesn't realize how cool what we get to do is. So I love it.
Absolutely, indeed. I love the way that your mom described your comedy as funny despite what she talks about and uncomfortable.
Yeah. My mom, she's actually gotten more on board in the last few years, but yeah, definitely like my family is not safe in my stand up. So my dad actually gets the worst of it. But they're all good sports about it, luckily. But I do think she's like, when I grew up, like laughing at my disability was not like we didn't really even talk about it in any way. It was almost like we sort of ignored it in many ways, and so I didn't really have for me, so stand up's been really therapeutic just to like be able to learn to talk about my disability. But it was definitely not funny, and it was sad. Like I think my parents really carried a lot of guilt, and it was a lot of sadness around my disability, and changing that into sort of laughter and something funny has been, I think, healing for all of us. I don't think I would be doing this if I didn't have a disability. I would have, followed my sister and played sports and tried, that route. And so the fact that the only reason I get to do this really cool thing is probably because I have a disability, I think helps my parents feel so much better about the fact that this happened to me, or this is how I was born, or whatever.
Indeed, most definitely. I remember when I performed stand up for the first time in front of my parents, and I bombed in front of them like bad. And like my parents were like, after my set, they're like, "We don't get any of this, but we'll support you."
Oh, my dad, in Sam's book, actually, he talks about this gig that the main character does, Billy Ray Schaefer, and it's where we're at this like what is it called? The Eagle Club, or what is it? Elks Lodge. There it is. Elks Lodge. Eagle Club. You get it. Anyways, Elks Lodge. we're the guys at the Elk Lodge, and then we had he follows this duck shit bingo where the duck has to waddle around and poop on squares, and that was a real gig that we did that I booked Sam for, and we went and did when we were really early on in stand up. And my dad lived in Greeley at the time. That's where it was, and he came to that, and man, I bombed. So I mean, somebody booed me. I bombed so hard. And this was like a room of 300 people. And you should have seen my dad's face. He was just like, why would anybody do this? And so he was like, you okay? Afterwards, like we literally just like bailed out the back door. We were just like, we're not walking by all these people. We have to get out of here. Yeah, so I have experienced that. When your parent sees you bomb, it is like, oof. But it's also come and seen my album recording that I recorded with the Pussy Bros and all that jazz. So he's seen some higher points since then, thank goodness.
Indeed, most definitely. My dad's like, here's $100, go on, I'll help you with your tour, and I came back home with $40 left in my pocket. So it was nice.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that is nice. Yeah.
Indeed. So you opened for Josh Blue, Sean Patton, and Andy Kindler. And what were those moments like?
Man, I really need a new bio. They're great. They're good. I've gotten to perform for, some great comedians even since then. Marin and David Cross and, who else? Taylor Tomlinson and, some really great Chris Red, some really great comics. So, all of them are great, it's so fun to see the different audiences and how people attract, like people who have a name actually attract their own audience and what that is different like. But I just love being on stage no matter who I'm opening for. So sometimes being on those shows with the famous people kind of puts on some unnecessary pressure, or I just don't like to feel stupid in the green room, like don't want to say anything dumb. So sometimes it's more stressful than it is like just a low pressure show. But at comedy, whenever they come to Comedy Works, like it's always a good show. So it's nice to know that. It's also nice to know that Comedy Works has helped make me into a comedian who I'm going to do good no matter what, at this point in my career. It would be very hard for me to just completely bomb the way you do when you're younger. And they've trained me to be that. So it's just fun to be able to go out there and show them what you can do when you're opening for somebody really great like that.
Absolutely. That's one heck of a resume you got there. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. I wish people were opening for me and that was on their bio. That would be better, but we'll get there one day maybe.
Absolutely. And you host a witty relationship advice podcast, which I need to listen to, called Empty Girlfriend, because I need a lot of relationship advice. And you also earned Best Comedy Podcast by Westworld Magazine, Best of Awards, and Best Podcast at the Sex Comedy Awards in 2017. Mm-hmm. And what were those award ceremonies like, and all those memories?
The Westward one was really cool. We haven't done our podcast in a while, but it's still out there for you to listen to. I just love doing podcasts because it was just a way to build relationships with a lot of people, and ours was really designed to sort of be able to like access gossip immediately, like tell us about your dirty laundry immediately. And so it was just a fun way to get into like a really deep conversation with people really quickly, and having some really great guests on there. And a lot of, I miss those days when I was having new episodes out and people were like, man, I heard this so many times. People are like, I feel like you're my best friend and we've never talked, and so I love podcasts for that reason. And getting those awards was awesome. Like podcasts take a lot of work, so when people recognize that, it's really nice for sure. And me and Haley, that was my co-host, we had a lot of fun we did that podcast for about 3 years, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Well, if you ever bring it back, I would love to have it at my festival, because I'm having podcasts on there now, and
nice.
In light settings. And so this year we're going to be outside at the Grindhouse Cafe, and so it's going to be socially distanced and everything like that. And last year was rough because there was no audience for the bands, but
Sure.
we still carried on anyways. And 'cause the comedians only brought one guest, and everyone was socially distanced. It was just we made it work, but it was okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, if you ever bring it back, and even if you want to do like a solo performance, we'll have fun too. So there's like 2 comedy dates. So I'd love to have you on
Okay,
the
cool.
bill. Mo Vita's on the bill already, so I'm really excited. So
Nice.
indeed. So on you're 1/3 of the Denver comedy powerhouse, the Pussy Brothers, and
Hmm.
how did you come up with the name and all that good stuff, and how you
Yeah.
get the name?
Uh I came from the school of, again, Sam Talent, this Fine Gentlemen's Club, and the Grolics have always been a big, like, comedy groups have been a big deal. I mean, when I was a younger comic, I think my dream of dreams was like to be in the Fine Gentlemen's Club, but that was not ever gonna happen. So it was almost like my response, like, to where we made our own, club, and it was more designed just so that we could tour together. Because as a woman, touring by yourself is, I've done it more now that I'm older, but at the time it was scary, I think, and it was just nice to have people to go with. And men were always taking other men on the road for these longer trips, and they were getting the experience. But there weren't any women going on the road and taking women. So it was sort of just a way, by design, helping us be able to tour together as a group. I thought of the name just as because of, the nature of the other groups being all male. It was sort of like a play on it was like a play on the male groups, but we're women, and I love cats. So yeah, that was just a weird name that came to my mind, and they luckily went with it with me. So it was awesome.
Indeed. And you rep the Mile High City pretty hard. It says in your bio. And what do you love most about like your favorite scene and your favorite place to eat in Denver? Because I love
Ooh,
illegal Pete's.
favorite place to eat. Yes. Man, I mean, I'll eat pho off of South Federal anytime. That South Federal pho scene is lit. Steuben's I love so much here in Denver. And then what else? I mean, I'm not a big Colorado is not like the best at food. If that's anything culturally wise, we're just not as good. I'd rather go to the South and eat there personally, but because everybody's really health conscious here. But Denver, just the art scene and the way that they support artists is amazing. And the weather is beautiful. You get the seasons, but you always have sunshine. And people are just good people. They're not too um, self-important, and everybody's just here to, like, help everybody rise. It's not about there's competition, as in, like, you're just trying to be as funny as everybody, but everybody wants everybody to succeed. And we sort of have this idea that, like, you know we're only as strong as our weakest link, and we want, even if a younger comic goes out of this town into another city and they're representing Denver, we want them to represent us well. And so we kind of think of it in that way. But right now, I think my favorite place is Wide Right, which is owned by 2 comics. They bought it just before the pandemic. Their wings are amazing. Shout out to Megan and Jeremy. And I just love being there because it's just like a home that if I go there any day of the week, I know somebody there, and my friends are there, and comics are there, and shows are about to start up again there. It's a good venue, but they haven't done shows in a long time, and so it'll just be really fun to get back to more normalcy again there. But it's just nice. It's almost like I'm so grateful to them, and because it just feels like we have a clubhouse there, and their wings are so good. Like, I don't even have to, like, pump that, uh, erroneously. Like, they're so good. Try that honey sriracha wing sauce.
Indeed, I'll definitely have
Yeah,
to go when I come back home, and because comics and wings, that's a great combination right there.
it's
So
so good. Yeah, in a bar, and it's just amazing. And it's like, it's a little divey. Like, it's like, that's my scene. I just want to sit at a dive bar. Since we lost El Torito, Wide Right has really become that new, like, clubhouse. So I'm so grateful for it. It keeps me able to go out somewhere, but, like, not be all around town with COVID going on, so it's
Yes,
good.
definitely, indeed. And my homeroom's a dive bar in Daytona Beach, and it's called the Tiranaga Irish Pub. And I'm making my magnum opus of stand up there right now, and have 4 of my tracks recorded. So got
Nice.
8 more to go, and I'll be happy. It'll be like an hour long. So I can't
Very
wait to go
cool.
back to.
Congrats.
Thank you. It'll be. I'm going back tonight, so I'm super excited to do this new stuff.
Yeah. Sorry, my cat really likes to make podcasts about her
Oh,
and scratch me. So
what's
say
your cat?
hello, kitty. This is Khaleesi.
Hi, Khaleesi. That's
She's
awesome.
an idiot. Anyways, yeah. So sorry I made that face, everybody. She scratched me. She was like, "Pay attention." Every time I get on a call or a show, they think I'm talking to them, and they're like, "Who are you talking to? It must be us. We're the only people in your life." And I'm like, "No, you're not." Okay.
Indeed. And Christy, I was hoping to go on tour and interview you in person, but then the whole pandemic hit. So, with that being said, Christy, what inspired you to perform stand-up comedy?
Um, I I didn't think I always watched a lot of stand up. Me and my best friend in high school, Savvy, we would watch stand up every Friday night. We would watch Premium Blend on Comedy Central. This is like before you had when you're 14 and before you have a car and you can go places. We would watch stand up all night and what I never thought I would be a comic. I had no, concept of how it even gets started. And then a friend of mine in college, this guy I actually had a crush on, was like, "You want to come watch me do open mic comedy?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally," and then as soon as I watched it, I mean, I could hardly listen to their sets because I was immediately like, "What would I say?" It literally, I've been writing a book sort of about this and everything that I teach in my classes, and that it was literally like the universe was screaming in my ear, like I couldn't hear or pay attention or listen to anything else because it was so like clear to me in that moment that it was like, this is what you're supposed to do. And I didn't even think it was something you could do. Like I hadn't thought about where does that start. I hadn't studied that sort of side of things. And so a month later, I started stand up, and now we're almost 11 years after that, and I haven't stopped. I mean, it's the best feeling right away, and it's something that I've pretty much gone after ever since then. So yeah.
Wow, congrats for going over a decade. I'm 7 years, but 5 years consistently, so I'm almost
Yeah.
there.
Nice.
Awesome. And what was it feeling like when you first performed stand up?
What was what?
Feeling like when you first performed stand up?
Oh, what was the feeling like? So I mean, terrifying. I remember my voice was like, like did this weird thing because of the adrenaline. My hands were shaking because I'd watched a lot of stand up, but I didn't know I didn't know joke structure at all, other than like Jeff Foxworthy's "you might be a redneck if" type jokes. And literally all my jokes in the beginning were "you might be crippled if" jokes, because I didn't know how. It's so embarrassing. I didn't know how else to do it though. And actually every year, I mean, other than last year because of COVID, um, which was sad. I was supposed to be doing the year anniversary of my show. I was supposed to be doing 10-year anniversary of comedy, and I was supposed to be releasing my book. I have a book about like Bumble posts that I made, and all through like I was supposed to do all of that, and but every year on my anniversary, usually because I still have it, I read my first set ever. Like I perform my first set ever, and it's so bad. But it's like funny in that way that you're like, oh man, and it's just fun to like celebrate how far you've come and how much you've learned. So I always get a little bit of a reminder of how bad or how nervous I was there in the beginning. But when you're done, like that rush of like, oh, like I did it and people laughed, and it was, I mean, that feeling is incredible, and I still, you know, feel it every time I get up there, I'm just like, fuck, this is awesome. So yeah.
From your first set, do you still have that some of those jokes from your first set?
Yeah, I still not very often, but the God hurt my foot. I do a joke about God hurt my foot. And then another Special Olympics joke, which I don't do the Special Olympics one hardly at all anymore. Just culturally, things have changed and people just are a little bit more afraid to laugh at it. But those two I still will pull out, and they're pretty close to the way I first wrote it now. So it's kind of funny. But those are the only two I really still do out of that first 10 minutes of comedy. So, but that's, I think, more than most people have. Usually after your first set, though, like 6 months after your first set, everything you first started with is trash, and you've gotten so much better and you're moving on. So
Indeed.
Yeah.
I still use two of mine for my first set, but they're molded and perfected, and I can just say them with my eyes closed, and it's just fantastic.
Absolutely. Can't even imagine how many times I've told that God hurt my foot joke. God, it has to be in the thousands.
Absolutely.
I need to get it on an album and just never say it again at this point.
For sure. And speaking of records and specials that we spoke of, you spoke of earlier in your answers, what are your favorite comedy specials and comedy record albums?
My favorite special is probably Tracy Morgan, Black and Blue, HBO special. Oh my God, that thing, it just makes me laugh so hard. I cannot. Man. It's so good. And then just like ones recently that I really loved. I mean, there's so many good ones, but like that's my favorite of all time. Probably is Tracy Morgan, Black and Blue. But ones that recently were just so good were Nate Bargatze, Tennessee Kid, Wanda Sykes, Not Normal. She has some really good jokes in there. And then Gary Goldman's The Great Depression. Those three are just super good. And if you want to just see really solid joke writing, Seth Meyers' Lobby Baby is just really good joke writing. So those are probably the four that I am looking at and loving a lot of times.
Indeed. And a lot of those folks have been on TV and film, and I want to know what your favorite sitcom, sketch shows, and comedy films are.
Oh, man. See, I don't even watch, like, I'm like, I make people laugh all the time. Let's watch something sad. No. But sitcoms, probably 30 Rock is one of my favorites. I really like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, the comedy writing on that thing. Like, if you get past the first season lags a little bit, but after that show is like incredible. And the rate at which both of those shows throw out jokes are just amazing. And then Ted Lasso recently is so on Apple TV is so good. And then sketches, David Pumpkins is probably gonna always be one of my favorite things in the world from SNL. And what else? I don't know. I watch SNL all the time, and they're all really good, but that one is probably my favorite of all time. And then comedy films, man, I don't know about that. There's none that like, I like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel as well. I think they do a really good job of Noah Garden-Forts. He's from Denver. He helps write the stand-up for that, and another comic, and that show is just absolutely amazing. But movies, I don't watch movies that much. Old ones, probably Tommy Boy of all time is probably my favorite comedy movie of all time.
That's mine too. That's pretty awesome.
It's so good.
Indeed, it'll never get old. That's great about it. And let's see here. If you can go on tour with any comedian locally and internationally known, which comedians would you like to go on tour with?
Going on tour locally is I mean, I've been lucky to be able to go on tour with a lot of people or do a road gig or whatever. But locally, I would love to go on tour with Nancy Norton a little bit more. I think she's absolutely awesome. But really, I want to be the one that gets to take younger females on the road. So that locally, that's who I would want to tour with. And then nationally, Maria Bamford, I would just love to watch her work her jokes night in, night out. She's so amazing. So going on the road with Maria would be so good. And but luckily, I'm just get to work with these people a lot without having to go on the road, which is good as well.
Most definitely. And let's see here. If you can get roasted by 5 comedians, past and present, which comedians would you like to get roasted by?
Roasted? Ooh, that is a good question. So Tracy Morgan, I feel like he would get me good. Let's see, who else? I'm trying to think of who's a roast comic, like who's gonna do it, you know? Steve Martin, I would love to hear any of his stand-up ever again. Let's see, 5 of them. Goodness. I want to hear what Wanda's got to say. I feel like she would say some good stuff. Fortune Feimster, I would like to hear her roast. And let's see, I'm trying to think of somebody who's pretty contemporary that's just on the rise right now that I think would be doing really good. Honestly, let's go back to Sam Talent. I mean, we have roasted each other, but man, he knows me better than anybody, and he'll get me good. Like, I still have a roast joke in my stomach from a couple years ago that I'm like, oh God, you got me so good. So yeah, I mean, I don't even necessarily want those famous people. Like, roasts are done by the people you love, you know, and I want to be roasted by my friends because they're the ones that, you know, can get you really good, but you still love them no matter what.
Absolutely. My very first comedy show ever was my roast, and it was my decision, and like John Brown and Charlie McMullen, and they were, and like 3 other people like that weren't comics, or well, Patrick was a comic, but anywho, it's on YouTube at the moment, and it's almost 600 views, and it's just an hour of brutality, and it's great to get roasted by the people that you love, like you said, because you know it feels you say nice things afterwards, and it's all personal, but then it feels it's not bad.
Yeah, you just know people. I mean, I've always lived in this. I was in band in high school, and I was a trumpet player, and I was always one of the only girls. And now with stand up, there's a lot more women now, but when I started, it was mostly men, and the culture is just like, if they're ribbing you, they like you. If they're not even paying attention or saying or noticing you, and not saying anything about you, that's worse, you know? So for me, it's like when people can give you shit, that means, you know, they are paying attention and they know you and they love you. And so it's a good experience, I think, even if it's like, woo, you got me. Wow, thanks. But yeah.
Indeed, I need to like keep that in mind, because sometimes I'm just like, sometimes people say mean things and I don't know how to take it. But comedy kind of makes
if they're not doing it in a roast, they can go fuck themselves. But if it's in a roast, then it's okay.
Indeed, most definitely, that's a good way to put it. Then, and let's see here. If you can, what do you see your comedy during the next 5 years?
Oof. Well, I want to keep teaching. Surprisingly enough, that's like, I love that so much. I'd love to get a late night set, and I'd love to just build up this side of the comedy teaching school that I am doing and start teaching other places. It's kind of crazy, but because I should, you know, I feel like so many people have these big inspirations of like just being the next, you know, Eddie Murphy or whatever, and that's great, but I don't have a big desire to like go to LA or New York. I love it here, and I love that I can make money just doing stand-up. I don't love acting. I don't, you know, I like doing it when I do it, but it's not like awesome. It's stressful to me. And so just being able to, grow more, be better, get some of those things from Denver. I really want to focus, especially after COVID. I think that the industry is not going to be as snobby and centralized on the West Coast in LA. And so I just want to build Denver up to be even more of a hub that people come to find good talent, because in most cases, comics in Denver can bury, no offense to Florida, but in most cases, comics in Denver can bury comics in any other city. And I think that with everything changing so much, there's a possibility of just the growth here now, and gaining national attention is exciting, and I want to be a part of help building that.
Indeed, and that's why I have this platform, because I want to help build you all up, and I love like from coast to coast, but it's like interviewing comics from my home state is just warms my heart. And
yeah, good.
If you hear screaming, that's my nephew. He's in town from Colorado. He's like almost 2, so he's not like Jurassic Park in the living room. So like my sister's here, and it's kind of like your kitten, it's like
yes, yeah.
Indeed. And so let's see here. You spoke of we spoke of acting, but which other forms of comedy would you like to venture off into, like improv, sketch, comedy writing, directing, etc.?
I want to get into more definitely late night writing and writing jokes for that kind of form. Sketch is fun. It takes a lot of work. If someone else wanted to do the work of like filming and editing, I would absolutely love to write. But that kind of stuff here is you gotta like be able to do all of it, and I can do all of it, but I just I don't love doing all that back end stuff. So sketch writing is great. I don't know. I mean, I think you can I love just writing, to write. And I love I'm already doing the writing, like building a joke and working a joke is just like the most fun thing you can do. And I'm growing that. I don't do improv very much. I'm too much of a control freak to really, I've tried because I work at an improv theater and I get classes for free, but I literally was like, I just couldn't give up control and I didn't want to rely on the other people to be funny. I think that's why I love stand up so much, is I get to decide how hard I work. And I don't have to wait for anybody to get on board. And so, this sounds really I don't know if this sounds lame, because especially in LA, everyone's like, what are you working on? What's next? And, but pre-pandemic, I really built the life that I love and I want. And I was be able to be home most of the time, making good money, teaching people stand up, which I love teaching, and performing almost every day. And then I would go on the road for a week, once every other month. And that was perfect. And I just want to get back to that. I want to build more festivals. I want to create more opportunities for performing. I'd like to build more storytelling, of a storytelling scene here in Denver. So that doesn't necessarily have to be funny, but it can be. And I love the art of live storytelling as well. So want to get more into that when things get back.
Indeed, most definitely. I ran a storytelling room in St. Augustine, Florida. It lasted 2 years before the pandemic hit. Like right at when the pandemic hit, it was like the 2-year anniversary. And then we just did one more show, and then boom. And I was hoping more of my comedy friends came from Jacksonville and stuff for it, because it was close there. But it was mostly old folks, and they have the best stories. It's so amazing.
They really do. Oh, that's awesome. Luckily here, you can book people and they'll come. Comics still like it a lot of times. So
awesome.
Nice.
Most definitely. And what experience what is your favorite joke a comic has written?
Oof. My new favorite joke that I just recently heard. I've heard it before, but I hadn't heard it in a long time, but I actually plugged it into my classes recently, was by Dusty Slay, who's out of Nashville as well. And he has this joke about how he thought that the storm cut out his power, but actually he forgot to pay the bill, and his wife wanted him to go over and ask the neighbors if their power was out, and he was like, "Is your power out, man?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "All right, well, power's out over here. I hope, just let you know they're cutting the power. He would just have to like lean into it and pretend like he didn't not pay. I'm gonna butcher it because the joke is so good and I can't. But then he's like, "Can you imagine if I kept going to my neighbor for other things that I messed up on?" He's like, "Hey man, did your car get towed?" They're towing cars. And he's just like, "Hey man, did your wife leave you?" "Hey man, are you crying a lot?" Like he just acted like I think he's like, "Man, yeah, because I've been crying a lot. My wife left me. The truck got towed. Power went out. Hell of a storm." Like he went back to hell of a storm. Like the way he loops it back to like the storm, because the way that he does it, you forget that this all started with the storm and thinking the storm caused the power going out, and so he brings it back to the storm. And I just think it's such a wonderfully written joke, and everyone should it's on YouTube. You can find it. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And I'll have to definitely look that up. And Christy, what experience would you like your audience to take with them after a set is over?
I always just want I want people to two things. I want them to feel like they know me by the end. I think a good comic is vulnerable, and they are like, "Wow, like I know that person more than when I left." And then I also just hope that next time they're kind of ignorant about disability stuff, they might catch themselves because of the fun I made on stage, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I probably shouldn't say that ignorant or sort of like patronizing thing to a person with a disability." So I hope they walk away thinking that.
Most definitely. And Christy, this is a stand-up speakeasy. It's the Roaring Twenties, the Prohibition, and it's like you got to know someone, like know a comic to know comics that can come into the stand-up speakeasy, because it's the secret society of stand-up comics. So with that being said, Christy, which Colorado comics would you like to see on future episodes of the stand-up speakeasy?
Good question. John Novosad would be great. Nancy Norton would be great, and Ben Kronberg. I think they'd all give you good interviews.
Awesome, fantastic. And with your experience with festivals and storytelling and podcasting, I would like to invite you to perform on my festival in Pueblo, Colorado this summer. At the Grand House. It'll be outside, and you can pick whichever ones you want to be on, being panels or podcasting or storytelling and stand-up, or all of them if you want to. We'll talk numbers and stuff afterwards and see if I can afford it, and I'll bring you down. And I'm trying to bring more Northern Colorado comics down to Colorado, to Pueblo, because like we're the bastard children of Colorado's comedy scene. Yes. So I'm trying, and like they love comedy there, but it's just like I just want to build, like, just create that perfect bridge of like just from the south to the north and back and forth, and be
for that awesome. You got to talk to David Rodriguez. You talk to David. David will help you. Awesome. Talk to David. He'll cover it.
Will do, absolutely. That'd be perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Christy. And then we'll talk how I can bring you to the fest this summer. It'll be outside, socially distanced. It's fantastic. And all that.
Yeah, if we can make it work, I'll be there.
Awesome, perfect. And for everyone else for Christy, myself, and the stand-up speakeasy, look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Be well, take care of each other, and see you all soon. And yeah.